Finally tonight, many parents despair that their kids would rather play computer games than read a book these days. And here's the man who's to blame for distracting them. Shigeru Miyamoto has been called the father of modern video gaming, or the Walt Disney of the computer screen. As a designer for the Japanese company Nintendo, Miyamoto created the all-conquering superhero plumber Mario, who's led through a series of Technicolor challenges. Later, his Super Mario Bros. Game went on to become the biggest-selling computer game of all time. With his company about to launch a new Mario adventure for the Wii console, I spoke to Shigeru Miyamoto, through a translator, about his past success and his vision of the virtual future. But I started by asking whether he ever imagined Mario becoming so popular when he first appeared nearly 30 years ago in an arcade game called Donkey Kong.
I could never have imagined a time when Mario or Donkey Kong would be so popular around the world. When I created Donkey Kong, I thought I could probably sell a lot of arcade machines in the United States and around the world. And at that time, even though he was a carpenter character, he didn't have the name of Mario. But that said, I was already thinking I would like to make more use of this carpenter character and make him appear in as many future games as possible.
Why did you decide to create Mario as this ordinary man, an odd job man? Why did you create the carpenter as a superhero?
I don't like the idea of a perfect hero. I prefer ordinary citizens trying to do something really good for society. I'd be embarrassed to have a perfect hero. I like the idea of a middle-aged, ordinary man doing something nice for other people. The reason Mario was originally a carpenter was because of the background to Donkey Kong. I wanted to set the game on a building site, and because of the colour limitations when creating Mario, I wanted him to wear overalls and a cap. I thought, he looks like a carpenter who isn't so smart, and somehow he's let his pet ape escape and kidnap a beautiful lady. And then this not-so-smart guy has to rescue her. James Newman, Senior Lecturer in Cultural Studies at Bath Spa University, remembers the impact of Mario.
In the early 90s, American teenagers were more likely to recognise Mario than Mickey Mouse, so he's a very visible character in games culture. As much as anything, Mario has now become a sort of signifier of a high-quality game. It's almost a kind of seal of approval that Nintendo use. You know that you're going to get something which has had care and attention lavished on it. One of the things that's, I guess, interesting about Mario is there's very little character to him. We know very little about him. So despite the fact that he's incredibly well known, incredibly visible and recognised, we know very little about his backstory, his history, or his kind of motivations, if you like. So he's not much of a character in the sort of traditional film or TV sense.
How do you know, when you're creating a game, whether it works? Is it important for you personally to enjoy your own creations? Sometimes the games reflect my own hobbies or tastes. When I was much younger, for example when making Mario, the games reflected my own childhood. But as I grew older, I became more influenced by my hobbies and personal interests when trying to create something new.
Miyamoto-san was an industrial design student who ended up working for Nintendo in the late 70s. And at that stage, Nintendo wasn't really a video games company. It was a toy manufacturer and had originally made playing cards. And Miyamoto-san joined as a staff artist and was responsible for creating art that might go on the side of arcade machines, for example.
Nowadays, sometimes I build things at home. As well as working very hard on the video games, I try, as a hobby, to make things by hand. I'm the sort of person who loves drawing in their mind. I love painting colours on a piece of paper that only exists in my head.
Miyamoto-san is often described as the Spielberg of games or the Walt Disney of games. He's certainly one of the few auteurs, one of the few developers, one of the few designers who are well known within games culture. His vision, I think, is the thing that you see most clearly in his titles. And there's a sort of care and attention to detail that really characterises a great Nintendo, a great Miyamoto game.
There is a very stylized cartoon quality to many of those games, particularly the Mario Brothers games, rather than the hyper-real, the super-real games which are presented by some of the other computer games manufacturers. Why is it important for you to have that cartoonish quality?
Our company makes games of several different styles, but we always try to be different. Whether it's video games or animation, there are always trends. For example, in the video games industry, it seems that the majority of companies are heading in the same direction, taking advantage of identical technologies. They are simply trying to be better than their rivals. But my idea is pretty different. We try to be unique and different, and try not to depend on the techniques of others. We try to be as uniquely creative as possible, and that's got to have played a part in making our games look different.
It does appear to be a very cartoony world that Mario inhabits. The palette is drawn of big, bright, primary colours. It's a very accessible, non-threatening kind of world. Most of the objects and most of the creatures in Mario's universe have sparkling eyes and often have big smiling faces. Mario himself lives in this big, bold, primary coloured world with dinosaurs and mushrooms and toadstools and coins to collect. It's this richness of a world that's been developed over 20 years or so that can be drawn on. So these universes feel complete and real in that sense.
Many games, particularly ones made by some of your competitors, are increasingly looking like Hollywood films. They have the dramatic narrative arc. There is a hyper-real filmic quality to the graphics. Films also are increasingly exploring the interactive qualities of computer games. Are we rapidly approaching an era of what people would describe as convergence, and would you welcome such a development?
The movie and video games industries tend to use similar technologies, and you might think it looks like we're making something similar. The fact is, in the past I've been asked, why don't you make movies yourself now you've made so many games? But I said, no, we're doing completely different things. And the key difference is the interactivity which we should cherish. It is true that more and more of what we make looks like a movie. And if, for example, we can borrow some of the technologies utilised by the film industry, that makes our lives easier. In that case, then convergence is good. That would mean I'd have more spare time to reinvest in re-intensifying the interactive nature of video games.
Video game creator Shigeru Miyamoto. We also heard from James Newman. The new Super Mario Bros. Wii is out now. Tomorrow, a review of Red, a new play about painter Mark Rothko, starring Alfred Molina. And Michael Frayn remembers his globe-trotting days as a young reporter. I'll be here again at 7:15.